I've been in real estate in Kitsap County for a real long time. That's long enough to know what the first call from a new homeowner sounds like about 6 months after closing. It goes a little something like this. James, nobody told me about the septic. Or, I had no idea about the trees. Or, my personal favorite, what do you mean moss destroys your roof? Today's video is the call that should happen before you close. The hidden costs of Pacific Northwest homeownership that often can get overlooked during the sales process. If you're watching this, you're probably in the research phase of a Pacific Northwest move, or you just bought here and you're starting to realize the maintenance reality is different from what you experienced back home. You see, most out-of-state buyers do a solid job researching the major costs, such as the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance. They feel like they have a complete financial picture before they sign. What they didn't budget for is the Pacific Northwest Premium, and the specific categories of homeownership costs that don't exist the same way in California, Texas, or the Midwest. And that show up every single year as line items nobody warned them about. So I'm not talking about small stuff here. I'm talking about costs that can run $5,000 to $30,000 and arrive with zero warning if you bought without knowing what to look for. I'm James Bergstrom, broker and owner of Paramount Real Estate Group. My job isn't just to get you into a house, it's to make sure you're still happy you bought 2, 5, 10 years from now. The only way to do that is to walk you through the real cost of ownership before we write an offer, and not after. Here's what we're covering: the 5 specific hidden cost categories every Pacific Northwest buyer needs to understand. Septic systems, well water, tree maintenance, moss and roofing, and the sewer connection reality. And at the end, I'm going to give you a framework for calculating your true monthly cost of ownership. So let's get into it. I'm starting with the one that generates the most panicked phone calls. The one that buyers discover after closing and immediately Google, how much does a septic cost to replace? The answer, by the way, is a lot more than they expected. A large portion of homes in Kitsap County, particularly in rural and semi-rural areas like South Kitsap, the Key Peninsula, and any home outside of incorporated city limits with municipal sewer service, is on a private septic system. If you're coming from a city or suburb back home, you've never thought about your sewer, it was just there. I had never heard of a septic system until I moved out here. On a septic system, you are the utility company. Here's what you need to know as a buyer. First, always get a septic inspection before you close. It's not an option, it's a requirement. A septic inspection runs $300 to $500 and can save you tens of thousands of dollars in post-closing surprise. Second, know what type of system you're buying. A standard gravity-fed septic system runs nowadays anywhere from $12,000 to $18,000 to replace in Washington State. But in areas with high water tables or poor soil absorption, Kitsap County requires alternative systems like mound systems, pressure distribution systems that can run $15,000 to $30,000 or more. I've seen buyers find out their drain field needs full replacement after moving in and face a $22,000 bill they had no reserve for. Third, budget for routine maintenance. Septic tanks need to be pumped every 3 to 5 years or so. And that can run a decent amount of money depending on the amount of tanks you have, whether you have a septic tank or a pump tank along with it. Plan for it, schedule it, and don't think about it again. The buyers who handle septic well treat it as a known variable from the moment they started shopping. They asked for the inspection records along with the as-built. They got their own inspection on top of the seller-provided inspection, such as scoping the system, which is important. They negotiated price reductions for systems near the end of life, or they bought elsewhere. The cost of that conversation is zero. The cost of skipping it could be $20,000. Septic's sister problem. If a home is on a private septic system, there's a good chance it's also on a private well, which means you're not just the sewer company, you're the water company too. Rural and semi-rural Kitsap homes frequently draw their water from private wells rather than municipal water systems. On a private well, everything in the chain, the pump, the pressure tank, the lines, is yours to maintain and yours to replace. Annual water quality testing is recommended by the EPA. In Washington State, that runs $100 to $350 depending on the panel of tests. Before closing on any property with a well, you need a well inspection. A qualified inspector checks the pump, the pressure tank, the flow rate, and the water quality. That inspection runs $300 to $600 and it's non-negotiable. Well pump replacement is the big ticket item, or re-drilling is even the bigger. Submersible pumps run $1,500 to $3,000 installed. Deep well pumps can run up to $8,000 or more. The thing about pump failure is it gives you almost no warning. It works fine Monday, and Tuesday morning you have no water. This is not a crisis you schedule around, it's an emergency repair. Hey, the well conversation is actually one of the easier ones to manage. Get the inspection, test the water, know the age of the pump and pressure tank. If they're over 15 years old, budget for replacement within your ownership period. By the way, I cover all of this and more in the free Washington State Relocation Guide I put together for buyers making this move. It's in the description. No emails required. Here's the one that confuses buyers the most when I bring it up, because who thinks about trees as a budget item? Kitsap County is so beautiful, and one of the things that makes it beautiful is the trees. Massive Douglas firs, western red cedars, and big leaf maples and hemlocks. You drive through a neighborhood and it looks like you're inside a nature documentary. And then you buy one of those houses, you start to understand that every one of those trees has a maintenance cost and a risk profile attached to it. All right, tree removal in the Pacific Northwest runs $550 on the cheap and up to $2,300 per tree for standard removal. Large trees near structures, which is basically any tree on most Kitsap properties, runs $1,500 to maybe $5,000 depending on the complexity. A tree that's leaning toward the house, has a split trunk, is dead or dying, that's an emergency removal. Pacific Northwest conifers grow fast and they fall. And wind events, disease, root rot, soil saturation from winter rain, tree fall is a real and regular occurrence here. A 100-foot Douglas fir that falls on your house is not a small insurance claim, it's potentially a total loss situation. So, on a property with multiple large conifers near the structure, a smart buyer gets an arborist assessment during due diligence. This costs $200 to $400 can save you from buying a property with $15,000 to $25,000 in necessary removal. So yeah, trees are part of what makes Kitsap extraordinary, but I'm not telling you to clear cut your property. I'm telling you to know what you're buying. A well-maintained tree canopy adds value. An unmaintained hazard situation is a liability. So know the difference before you make an offer. This one is sneaky. It's the hidden cost that doesn't look like a problem until it already is one. Parts of Kitsap County see over 150 days of rain per year, and that sustained moisture combined with the shade from all those beautiful trees creates a perfect environment for moss, algae, and lichen growth on roofs, gutters, and siding. And here's the mechanism nobody explains. Moss holds water against the surface of your shingles. That trapped moisture works its way under the shingle edges. In winter, it freezes, and when it freezes, it expands, and that expansion lifts and cracks the shingles, creating pathways for water infiltration that didn't exist before. So over time, you go from a moss problem to a shingle problem to a water intrusion problem to a structural rot problem, and that cost escalates at every stage. Moss treatment in Washington runs $400 to $900 for a typical residential roof. The professional treatment schedule in the Pacific Northwest is once to twice a year, and that's a real budget line item. Moss-related roof issues can increase repair costs by up to 30%, and a full roof replacement on a Pacific Northwest home runs typically between $10,000 to $20,000 or more, depending on the home size, material choice, and the type of roof it is. During any home inspection in Kitsap, I want a strong breakdown and inspection of that roof specifically, and sometimes bringing a specialist out is very necessary. Age, condition, presence of moss, we want to look at that. A 12-year-old roof with heavy moss and granule loss is a different purchase than a 12-year-old roof that's been properly maintained. So that difference should show up in the negotiated price, not as a surprise 6 months after you move in. Quick, but critical. Some Kitsap properties are connected to municipal sewer, and some are on private septic but located in an area where municipal sewer lines exist nearby. Those properties may be required by the county to connect the municipal sewer when the septic system fails. So here's the scenario. You buy a house on septic. The septic is functional at the time of purchase. 5 years later, the drain field starts failing. You call a contractor and find out that because your property is within 200 feet of a municipal sewer line, Kitsap County now requires you to connect to the sewer rather than replace the septic. The connection cost, permit, lateral installation connection fees run could be $15,000 to $30,000 or more sometimes. And this is not a hypothetical. This happens. So before you buy any property on septic in Kitsap County, your agent should be checking whether there are any county notices related to future sewer connection requirements. This is a public records check. It takes maybe 20 minutes. Most buyers and frankly most agents don't do it. And this is exactly the kind of thing that separates a transactional agent from an advisor agent. A transactional agent gets you to closing. An advisor agent keeps you from getting a $25,000 bill 3 years later. That was entirely predictable. This is the one that ties everything together. And because knowing that these costs exist is valuable, so knowing how to calculate them before you make an offer is what actually protects you. Most buyers calculate housing cost as mortgage payment plus property taxes plus homeowners insurance. But in the Pacific Northwest, that number is incomplete. There is a fifth variable, your true annual maintenance cost. And here's how I build the true cost calculation with every buyer I work with in Kitsap. Step 1. Identify the property type, sewer or septic, municipal water or private well. How many large trees near the structure, age and condition of the roof. These 4 questions define your entire hidden cost exposure. Step 2, assign annual cost ranges to each category. Septic maintenance, $100 to $175 per year in pumping reserves, plus a drain field replacement reserve based on system age. Well maintenance, $100 to $350 in annual testing plus pump replacement reserve. Tree maintenance, $500 to $2,000 per year for routine trimming and monitoring. Roof maintenance, $400 to $900 per year for moss treatment and cleaning. Step 3, and those annual costs to your monthly housing number. Significant exposure in all 4 categories might add $3,000 to $6,000 a year to your true housing costs, or $250 to $500 a month. That's a real number, so use it. All right, step 4. Use this framework as a negotiation tool. A property with a 25-year-old septic, a failing well pump, 3 hazard trees, and heavily mossy roof is not a property you pay list price for. It's a property where you negotiate a price reduction or repair credits that reflect the actual deferred maintenance. I've helped clients negotiate $15,000 to $40,000 or more off asking price using exactly this framework. Pacific Northwest homes, they're extraordinary. The lifestyle, the setting, the value, it's all real. But the maintenance reality is different from what most out-of-state buyers have experienced. The buyers who thrive here went in with clear eyes open and understood the full cost structure and made their offer accordingly. Know the difference, budget the difference, and buy accordingly. 5 hidden cost categories every Pacific Northwest buyer needs to know. Septic, $5,000 to $30,000 to replace. Always get the pre-purchase inspection and scope it. Well water, $300 to $600 for inspection, $1,500 to $8,000 when the pump fails. Know the age of the system. Trees, $800 to $2,300 per tree. Get an arborist assessment during due diligence on any heavily treed property. That's close to your house especially. Moss and roofing, $400 to $900 per year for treatment. $10,000 to $20,000 if you let it escalate to replacement. Sewer connection, $15,000 to $30,000 if a failing septic triggers mandatory municipal connection. Check the public records before you close. You came in knowing you wanted to buy in the Pacific Northwest. You leave knowing what nobody put in the listing. That knowledge is worth real money and potentially tens of thousands of dollars on your first offer alone. If this video gave you more than you expected and maybe opened your eyes to maybe something you didn't know 30 minutes ago, that is exactly what this channel is built for. The agent who tells you the things that might slow down the sale is the agent you want negotiating for you at the table. So, if you're looking at properties in Kitsap County and you want to run the true cost of ownership framework on a specific listing, I do free strategy conversations all the time. No agenda, just a real conversation. The link is in the description. And the Washington State Relocation Guide is in the description as well. Grab it if you're still in research mode. Hey, please subscribe if you want more of this. Drop a comment. Tell me which one of these 5 surprised you the most. I read every one. I'd love to meet you. Thank you so much for watching.